This is the Wannabe Saints podcast, where we take virtues and try to break them down so they become tangible and applicable to your life.
We aren't here to bring you advice, we're here to bring you virtue. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Rachel.
We're your hosts,
and this is Wannabe Saints. I think I usually say Augustine.
Do you say
I
Augustine?
actually kind of go back and forth because sometimes I'm like, they sound so different. I'm like, are these two different
They
saints?
do sound
people?
so different.
They do.
I question it every single time someone says
So,
Augustine. I'm like,
yep.
I think you're talking about who I know is Saint Augustine, but maybe I'm totally wrong.
St. Augustine, St. Augustine. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
Okay, are you going?
yeah, I'm going.
Hi. Okay, cool. All right, welcome back to Wannabe Saints, everybody. Today we have a special guest, Emma. We have her on specifically for journaling. She created a pregnancy journal, and we happened to get connected with her right around the time that I found out I was pregnant. And
We actually acknowledged that last episode.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Jordan.
yay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm 16 weeks along now, or about to be. But anyways, so it was just kind of such a godsend of timing that we got connected with you. Oh, she has this pregnancy journal we want to share, and she wants to share, and it's like, how weird. I'm pregnant, so now I can actually try it out and see what it's all about with the actual pregnancy hormones and feelings and everything that goes along with it.
And even better yet, she's not a normal journaler. So this is like a true
It's a true test of
testament
journaling.
to journaling. It really is.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But before we keep going on that, Emma, why don't you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Well, like Jordan said, my name is Emma. I grew up kind of around here, Crystal Lake, Chicagoland area. I grew up in a big family, 7 kids. I'm right in the middle. And yes, I went to school up in North Dakota, University of Mary. It's beautiful. Absolutely would suggest. And that's where I met my husband, actually. And now I live in the Rockford area with my husband and my new baby boy. Although I guess he's a little bit older now, which is crazy. It's happening so fast.
Sad how fast they
It
grow.
is crazy. Oh my goodness. I was not ready for it. But yes, he just turned 1 last month. And yes, and that, I've always been a huge journaler. I know we'll talk much about this. But during pregnancy, especially, that really came to the forefront. It really is. It's such an identity shift. And it really is, I don't know. I just think it's a beautiful time to be able to sit back and kind of just reflect on what it really means to be going through this. And so that's kind of when I started journaling a little bit more in depth, and I really loved it. It helped me so much. And that's kind of when I created this journal. And I don't know if I should go into like how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, go right into it.
Go right into it. Yeah.
I didn't know where we were going to go. But yeah, a friend of mine became pregnant when I was probably about halfway through my pregnancy. And so I just bought a blank journal for her, and I wrote down all these prompts, and I made it very like geared towards her specifically. But I kind of just went through my old journal, and I like kind of tried turning my exercises into prompts and stuff like that. And I enjoyed it so much, and I just loved doing it. And I really felt such a calling to be like, this is such an important time in life to be reflective and to be intentional about your relationship with yourself, your relationship with God, as everything is changing. And I just felt like this could be something that could be so beneficial to so many women. And that's kind of when I was like, I brought this idea to my husband, and he was like, yes. So
Yeah.
he was the one who really pushed me to do it. And I'm so glad he did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, before we keep going with this is a good time to just, before we deep dive into your journal, what's in it, how journaling has helped you, all of those kinds of things, we should tell the people what it means to be introspective. So I'll start by saying that if you look up introspection in the Catechism, it's not going to come up. You're not going to see introspective be in the index of where do you find church teaching on this. Introspection is more of a psychology term, but we're going to use it because it encompasses what the church does teach about being a self-reflective person. It just encompasses the multiple things that they talk about. So they talk about self-knowledge, they talk about an examination of conscience, and interior examination. Sounds kind of like the same, but those are the phrases and words that the church teaches with. So introspection, the definition that we're going off of, is the habit of examining one's interior life, thoughts, desires, emotions, motives, and actions in the light of God's truth in order to grow in self-knowledge. It aligns one's will with God's will, and it allows you to advance in holiness. So that's kind of a lot to unpack, but it just goes to show how important it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Without introspection, you can't actually grow even in virtue because you need to understand yourself to know even where you need to grow and how you need to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you need to be able to know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your God-given talents to be able to use those. You know that you've come to understand journaling even. That's a talent. It is, because you've learned about yourself a lot, and then you're willing to be able to be vulnerable and then use that for the sake of others. But another thing is just a side note, really, is that being introspective shouldn't cause you to be self-centered or self-absorbed, right? To be introspective is to be God-centered in self-awareness. So this is kind of where it's like the argument of, well, how is being introspective really a virtue? Well, it connects to humility. You're seeing yourself as God sees you, strength and weakness. You're also then connecting it to prudence, because you're able to see things for what they are and make just actions out of those, right? Acting in accord to your emotions or passions or whatever has happened to you, right? Usually when I'm journaling, it's about something that's happened. And so you're kind of analyzing a situation, and journaling about it is not to just be like, Dear Diary, I'm angry because blah, blah, blah happened to me and it's an injustice. And so now I'm just going to sit in this anger. The end, right? Like you're like writing. The true skill to journaling is, here's the situation. Now can I zoom out, see the big picture, and then act accordingly of, maybe they didn't mean to do this to me, or maybe I should have handled this better. It's that being able to take a step back, see it on paper, and then go from there. So at least that's what I think that it is. But you're the expert here. So
Well, I don't know if I'm expert. I feel like we're all, I don't know. I don't think that this is a skill that can ever be mastered.
Yeah.
I feel like really the best journalers are the ones who, are discovering something new every day. And I think that that's beautifully put. I think it's not about being self-centered or sitting in your feelings. It really is. And I feel like I found this, the more I do so, the better or the easier it is to do this, where you kind of detach yourself almost from the situation or from the feeling, and you can see it on a page. I feel like there's so much power in that, and seeing something that you're so, like, your heart or your emotions, your feelings are so intertwined with, and kind of taking it and unbinding it from who you are.
Yeah.
And you can put it down on a page, and you can almost, I don't know, I feel like you can see it for what it is.
You can even see maybe like a toxic thought that you're like, that's actually not even true.
Exactly.
But it's like a dramatic thought, but the emotion is there.
The emotion is there. And that's something, at least for me, where it's like when I keep that in my head, I just think that that's part of who I am. That toxic thought or that negative feeling about myself or about another person or about a situation in general. But then when I put it down, I'm like, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be, and just kind of realizing that, that's just a thought. It's just a feeling. I can choose how I want to approach this differently, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's such a powerful tool in order to really decide what kind of person you want to be in a more clear way.
Yeah. That makes me think of this quote. Actually, why don't you just share it? It's on your paper.
Do not go outside of yourself, but enter into yourself. Truth dwells in the inner man. It's from St. Augustine.
Oh, I love it.
Or Augustine.
Or Augustine.
Who knows?
Who knows? Only God.
Only God. Only God. No, I think that's beautifully put. And I don't think I've ever heard that quote, but I love that.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And yeah, I feel like that perfectly encapsulates kind of the message that I'm trying to get across just with what I was saying in, being able to detach yourself from the passions that you feel and really enter into yourself on what's God putting in my heart. What is God trying to speak through me? Because I feel like so often in every situation, we know the answer, even when we don't know it. And being able to really enter into yourself in those quiet moments of reflection and be like, oh, Lord, like, while I'm writing this, I know what you're telling me. I know what you're trying to say to me, know?
For sure. Yeah, even like when I was doing some of these journals, it's like actually writing down a feeling and admitting it and then reading it back to myself. I'm like, geez, that's how I feel. But it's like almost a new level of processing a thought or an emotion or something, reading it back. Shoot, okay, it's out there now. It's like it's off of me.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, now God, help me process through this
Mhm.
and see it in a new light or something like that.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I love that. And
Yeah.
really that's, I don't know, that's the point of this book, really, this
Yeah.
journal, and just my process in journaling, what I find there
Yeah.
as well, when it's like, just because I feel like so often when we hold these thoughts in, when we hold these feelings in, especially when they're in a stage like pregnancy, when it's like
Mhm.
there are so many emotions and hormones and so much is changing, it's scary.
So much you can't control.
So much you
Right.
can't
Literally,
control.
like none of it can you
Yeah.
control.
You can't control it.
Exactly. Yes, when we keep it in, I feel like we assume that it is who we are,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the process of putting it on a page and in seeing it outside of your head, seeing it outside of yourself, you can be like, wow, that's how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of choose. I guess that's the beauty in it, in reflection in general, is that you
Yeah.
get to choose. Like, you have so much more control than you think.
Yeah.
Because you have control over your response to anything. And being able to identify what you're choosing is so powerful, and I think that it's so virtuous. I
It
really
is.
do. Because, that's where true virtue stems from, is that free will of choice.
Mhm.
And so being able to make that more intentionally, I think, is so much more pleasing to God.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That being this virtue, right? I feel like there's so many people are like, I'm not a journaler. Jordan was one.
Me.
Yeah. I'm not a journaler. It's not for me. I don't
Mhm.
process things like that. I don't do those kinds of things. I don't
Mhm.
need it. I'm fine. And I had told you I've been promoting this metanoia journal, and just, wow, it's helped me immensely. And so I've tried to get like a ton of people to do this. And then the people that are always like, journaling's not for me. And I'm like, just try it. And they try it and they're like, oh my gosh, that was so helpful, especially women.
Mhm.
It's that whole concept of women have the spaghetti brains, right?
Mhm.
It's just one, like, where's the root of the thought? You just keep going and they all just keep connecting and there's no end. There's no end. And then but journaling, especially for women, it's like, oh, there's the root. Oh,
Absolutely.
that's actually what I'm feeling. Oh, this negative thought I have about this person isn't actually even about that. I've actually been hurt in this way.
Mhm.
Or it's, oh my gosh, the reason that hurt is because it's hitting this root wound of feeling like I'm not good enough or
Mhm.
something like that, right? But it's putting it on the paper. But then it changes the way you interact with people because
100%.
you're able to be like, I'm actually not angry with you.
Mhm.
I'm angry about something else, but it triggered me and I didn't even know it triggered me. And then you're able to just go and live virtuously because now you're not reacting every time. You are responding, like you said. And that's the whole point of virtue. It's to just be able to take what God has given you, which is desire, which is passion, which is emotion. He wired you that way for a reason. Like, you're going to get angry, you're going to get upset. But that free will of, okay, now what? Now what do I do with it? And understanding that, at the other side, that person's obviously going through something too. But you have a skill or a opportunity to choose to use it to help you build that virtue.
Absolutely. I love the way you put that. Exactly. Yes, just that power of the choice of how you respond.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the free will is.
Mm-hmm.
That's God's greatest and most confusing gift. My goodness.
Honestly. Just make me perfect. God.
Exactly. Please.
Make me choose the right things.
Yes. But it really is so beautiful. He desires us to choose him. He desires us to choose the right thing. And he gives us all the tools in order to do that. And he puts them right in our hearts. But a lot of times that spaghetti brain, it gets in the way. A lot of times it's one thing that leads to another thing that leads to another thing. And he says, hey, just look. Just look, it's right here in your heart. You just need to find it.
Yeah, even one of these prompts that you have in here, it's making me want to act upon what I'm putting down now. Because I'm like, okay, it's on paper. I have to do it. It's not just this running thought through my mind. I need to act upon it. So the prompt is just, what do you want to be and how can you get there? So it's not even that this is about like necessarily pregnancy or anything like that, but I want to be more meek, gentle, and patient, more present, organized, and intentional. How do I do this? I need to start by continuing to have more prayer time and being more present and intentional with God so that He can clear my mind and help me understand my life's priorities and eliminate the unnecessary things that distract me and stop me from being all these things I want to become. Then I need to act on organizing my life so that I can simplify it so I can be more present and intentional, which then will lead me to growing and becoming more meek, gentle, and patient.
Oh, wow. I love it.
But it's just like connected all of these train of thoughts, and now I have a concrete way of how I can do these things.
That's the beauty of it. I love that. I really do. And that's really, I mean, I don't know. That's always the best. When I get done with a journaling session, that's usually the best. When that happens, when I write down, I'm like, oh, wow, these are the steps, you know? And it's crazy.
It's so simple.
It's so
I
simple.
came up with this on my own. I mean, maybe God, had a little to do with it.
The
But
crazy part is that was just all inside you. You had no idea.
right.
You know, God does give you the steps that you need to take to be holy.
Yeah.
It's just that so often we go through life just not acknowledging them or not even realizing that they're there.
Yeah.
And I will say that it's so wonderful when that happens, but it is intimidating.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll like sit down and be like, I know I should journal, but I'm scared because I like my nighttime
I'm in my comfort
YouTube
zone.
videos
Exactly.
and I like all these things that I know probably once I journal, I'll be like, I know you're telling me that I should cut these out.
Yes.
You know, I love all these things, but it really is such a beautiful act of being able to write it down and be like, now I have to address it.
Yeah.
You know,
exactly.
of like, I feel like I love the prayer of being like, God, what do I do? What do I do? But as soon as He tells me, I'm like, but what do I do? You know, like, let's ignore that part.
Yeah.
Try
No,
again.
skip. Okay.
Try
Oh,
one more
I didn't
time.
quite hear that. Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like journaling helps so much. You address that because then you write it down and you're like, it's right there, and I can keep rereading it. It's not going to change.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
No, you said something that honestly kind of profound of just, it's all within you. And we act like it's not within us, and we search through everyone and everything for the answer. But if you just sit back and analyze your heart, your soul, you realize, I had the answer all along. Jordan was journaling, and I'm not a journaler, and didn't. And it's like, oh my gosh, the thing I've been struggling with, I had the answer within myself this whole time. But it's this self-denial or this ungodly self-reliance where sometimes we even think that we're trying to rely on God, and we're like, God, tell me, God, tell me, God, tell me. But in reality, you're kind of like plugging one ear, and you're like, or something.
Please tell me, la 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 la.
No, literally, I'm partially hearing you, Lord. Partially hearing you. But in reality, it's just, no, enter into yourself. You also seek out certain people knowing what answer they'll give you, what type of answer they'll give you, right?
It's like, I'm going to go to this person because I know they'll validate me. I'm going to go to this person. I know they'll call me out where I need to be called out.
Yep.
You definitely go where you want, what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. And the Catechism, the one thing that it had to say, okay, when you look up like self-knowledge, I can't even remember what I looked up in the back of the Catechism. It was like self-knowledge examination or something. And it had one thing underneath it.
All right.
And so it's in paragraph 1779. It says, quote, "It is important for every person to be sufficiently present to himself in order to hear and follow the voice of his conscience. This requirement of interiority is all the more necessary as life often distracts us from any reflection, self-examination, or introspection. Return to your conscience, question it. Turn inward, brethren, and in everything you do, see God as your witness." St. Augustine said that.
Oh, I love it.
But
Man, of anything they had to say, I feel like that's a good one.
Oh, yeah,
It
no,
is.
seriously.
They only got a couple of sentences. We'll take those.
Yeah, but like what you were saying about it's already within you, right? Follow the voice of your conscience. That is your moral compass, God-given. And people always go, I don't hear God's voice. Like, I want to hear God speak. I think part of that is just He gave you your conscience to speak to you. That's Him helping guide you. Listen to that.
You get a gut feeling you're doing something wrong? That's God telling you. You're doing something wrong.
But in order to hear that, you need silence. You need journaling. You need meditative prayer. You need all of these things to, one, form that, but two, also hear that. I wrote down a couple ways of the building of introspection.
Okay.
If people want, how do I implement this virtue into my life? How do I become this? The daily examination of conscience, right? Going off of church teaching, a meditative prayer, journaling, which is obviously the number one thing we're talking about, spiritual direction, regular confession, and silence so that you can reflect. The thing that's really cool about journaling and having you on for this is that journaling can be for the meditative prayer, the daily examination, for confession, for spiritual direction, right? You can use it for all of these things. It's such a wide variety of ways that you can journal, which is just truly like the beauty of it. That it's not a one way only.
Yes.
You know, you can do it in so many different ways. So
yes, absolutely. And I would argue to say that most of the people who say I'm not a journaler, you are. I promise you, if you write a checklist at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the month, you're a journaler. If you have Post-it notes anywhere, that's where it starts, really. It's taking your thoughts and putting them to words, putting them on a piece of paper, you know, and it really is, it's so helpful in so many different ways. Of course, there's that spiritual aspect where you can really center yourself and identify your feelings and where you need to be growing in virtues and what vices hold you. But then it's also like constructive. It can be constructive. It can be logical. It can be anything really, which is, you know, anything that's helpful to you. And I think it's just a beautiful place to start. I feel like it's so intimidating entering into something that you're so positive you don't know how to do. So that's why I feel like just kind of reminding people that, you know, if you write things down ever, you have journaled. You know, you're not starting from scratch, you know. Start with the easiest way, you know. Write down like, hey, how am I feeling today? Or, you know, one of my favorite journaling exercises, which I feel like is the grandfather of all journaling, is that gratitude journaling. You know, just write down things that you're thankful for and you'll be able to identify them more. You know, you'll be able to see God in the smallest things, you know. So I don't know, I don't know where that came from, but just in encouraging people to take stock of the realization that, you know, journaling isn't just for a certain type of person. Like you said, there are so many different kinds of journaling, and chances are you've journaled at one point in your life, one point or another, and it's not hard. It shouldn't be intimidating.
Right. I think why I always was intimidated by journaling is because I felt like it had to be, if I'm going to be a saint one day, I better have the perfect journal for people to read.
I love it.
And so it has to be this beautiful thought written out, even if it's this like introspective type of thinking of this nasty thing about me, but it's like, it's better be written out well.
Yes. Like you see all these quotes from saints that are journaled.
Yes.
And you're like, ooh, that's not
what my journal would look like. But going
Exactly.
through this journal, your prompts are so simple and easy. Oh, this isn't hard. I could do this in 5 minutes if I wanted to, or I could spend 15 to 20 minutes thinking and then writing.
Read a couple of the prompts just so people have an idea of what Emma has created.
Yeah. Let's see. Labor and birth goals. There's one. What are your goals for labor and delivery? What's important to you? What are some options you would like available? What kind of mother do I want to be? What do you want to be for your child? What does that look like day to day? What are things you can offer up? That one I really liked. This one is fill in the blanks. What's keeping you from God? And also the art in this book is so cute.
Oh, thank you.
This one is a little girl looking up with all of these building blocks with a cross on top. And it's like, how can I get there? So cute.
Pages that are highly influenced by like coloring books.
I love it.
But I don't know. This is just kind of a peek into my kind of journaling. Like this.
Yeah.
And of course, if this, this isn't a textbook. Really, is kind of the thing I'm also trying to drive home of like each of these prompts are going to look so different to, to each person.
Yeah.
And really like just in pregnancy and in life in general, like your story, you're experiencing a life that no one else ever has.
Right.
You know, like in the history of the world, God has never created a person exactly like you. There's no one who's experienced everything that you've experienced. There's no one who was designed with the same design that you were, and so each person, like your story is going to look different, your journey is going to look different, and that's kind of my goal of these journals, is not to lead you through life, it's not to lead you through journaling, but it's to give you some idea. It's more of a companion, really, is what it should be, of like, this is a springboard for people who don't know how to journal, who are intimidated by it. They're like, I don't know where to start here,
Yeah.
You know, here's a thought, go off it.
Yeah.
And for people who, you know, journal a lot, this is more of something that can focus you and be like, oh my gosh, I have so much on my mind. Okay, what does the prompt say? Let's write something about that. But each of these prompts are designed to be ignored if they need to be. You know, I am not the author of this journal. You are. This is just, you know, it's just a board for you to draw your picture on.
Yep.
Really. You know, I don't know where I was going with that. I started off with a thought.
No, that was beautiful.
Good.
That was
Okay.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, let's just ask you, what's your favorite prompt in that? Do you have one off the top of your head?
Whew, that's a good question. The one that, you know, just off the top of my head, and it's similar. There's a couple ones that are similar, and they're,
Yeah.
you know, they speak to different people differently. But one of my favorites is to pick up your cross and follow me. So it's a, you know, quote from the Bible, and it shows a cross on it, and basically the prompt is to fill in things that you're struggling with and things that God's asking you to carry. And I feel like, I don't know, I do this often in my journaling, because so often I feel like we get stuck in things that annoy us, or things that are upsetting, or things that are real hard struggles. And a lot of times we act like the victim. We act like, oh my gosh, my life is so hard. God, why are you doing this to me? But it really just takes a moment of reflection and a moment of kind of identifying those things and being like, God, you're asking me to carry this. This is my cross. You know, I feel like so often you see these saints that have gone through these huge things, or you see these, you know, amazing people who have overcome so much adversity, and you're like, wow, my life is pretty easy. But then, you know, your husband says something, he doesn't compliment your outfit, and you're like, you know, or like, you know, someone cuts you off in traffic, and you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, but like, these are the small things, those small moments that God's asking you to carry your cross. And once you identify them as that, you're like, wow, I can do that. Like, that's something that I have the power. You're asking me to be a saint through having to bounce my baby to sleep at 2 a.m. And you're tired and you're annoyed, but then you're like, wow, God, this is the thing that's gonna make me a saint. This is the thing you're asking me to carry, and that I can carry this, and I can carry this with joy. And, you know, in just writing those things down helps so much in identifying where he's asking you to follow him. You know, because a lot of times, at least in my life, thankfully, you know, I haven't gone through these huge things, but sometimes it makes you feel inadequate, of being like, all these saints have gone through so much.
Right.
You know,
we
how can
picture
I
the
be?
cross as the big, heavy thing.
Exactly. But you don't see it as those tiny little things that do build into a cross, and it does build into a life that you can live for God. And so, I guess, coming back to it, that's one of my favorite journaling prompts. That's one of my favorite exercises in journaling, is just taking those small things that annoy you and just kind of choosing to be like, wow, God, you're asking me to carry this. And then the next time it comes up, the next time your baby wakes up, or, you know, you run out of gas and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get to this place, I need to get to this place, or whatever it is, those small little things that you would just complain about. You see them and you identify them as the thing that God's giving you to be like, hey, be holy through this.
Yeah.
Be joyful through this.
Yeah.
Do this for me. You know,
Mhm.
and then I don't know, I find it so much easier to do that, because then once you view it through that light of like, gosh, this is the cross you're asking me to carry.
nothing.
To carry. I can do this.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, no problem. So I feel like that does lead to more intentional living. It does lead to more peace and more joy and more holiness in general. And I'm saying this as someone who still struggles. I'm not saying this as like, this is the fix, everyone. But this is an amazing step that you can take to become more intentionally holy.
And that prompt is one that you can use at any point in your life, like every
Yes.
day. Like, that's just an amazing, simple question to ask yourself, to just come back to choosing joy, especially if you're struggling to choose joy. Just a quick reminder of, all right, this is what I need to carry, and I can see it in this light now.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, I feel like this is a good time to just jump into some questions for you.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Awesome. So why don't we just start at the beginning? Like, what got you into journaling? how old were you when you started journaling maybe? And then just kind of like, where did that take you?
It's a great question. So I would attribute it all to my mom. She's a therapist, and she was a stay-at-home mom throughout my childhood. We were homeschooled, and I like to say that she never stopped being a therapist. She just had fewer clients who paid her less, I would say. And we were really her clients for sure. And she was just so amazing. And journaling was one of those things that she really did. She really helped us to do. We would do these commonplace journals, is what she would call, and they would basically just be anything. She would get us these little books, and we'd sit down with our art supplies at the dining room table, and we would just do whatever we want. Like if we wanted to do a little picture, or we could draw our favorite quote, or if you wanted to go more in depth, and that was always something that every time I was struggling with anything, I would always come to her, and she'd be like, oh, like, let's journal together. Let's journal about this. And it really did. It helped me all throughout. I want to say I really started being more intentional in my journaling. I was probably like 12 or something when I really started being like, okay, like I'm going to sit down. I can do this, And so I would write letters to Jesus. That's what I do. At the end of the day, I'd sit down and be like, oh, Jesus, this is what I did with my day. Like, just different things. Like, this is how I'm feeling. And I found that so impactful and so helpful. And a lot of times it did help externalize, just like we were talking about before. A lot of times, like, I'd be writing down like, my brother did this today, and it was so annoying, and I was so upset. And as I was writing, I'd be like, I'm writing a letter to Jesus. This is not that big of a deal. Like if I have something to tell to Jesus about my day, like my little brother stealing my favorite pencils, it's not that crazy, and so that would help me throughout the day of being like, you know what, is this worth getting that upset about? Am I going to talk to Jesus about this tonight? Probably not. And so that's kind of where my love for journaling really started. And then I did start being more creative. And like you said, or you saw in this journal, that's kind of what my journaling process looked like. It looked like some pretty pictures, or like sometimes I do gratitude, sometimes I do struggles, whatever it was. That's kind of how it started. And I feel like I've, like anything that you start, you get better at it over time. And I feel like to this day, it is one of those things that is so helpful and so impactful. Anytime I'm going through something hard, anytime I'm overly joyful, anytime, anything is really happening, sitting down with, colored pencils and my journal is just such a great way to externalize it. And again, to just kind of choose where to go from there.
It's probably become somewhat of like a second nature for you of just, this is part of how you.
Yes, how I process anything.
Yeah, no,
it's really what it is.
Which is awesome.
Yes,
yeah.
I love it. And like I said before, it's one of those skills that's like you're never perfect at it. You're never gonna master it. But the more you do it, the easier it comes, and then the more you get out of it.
But that's the virtue, right? That's the virtue of it. You have now developed a good habitual habit, and you. Sure, you maybe don't master it, but that's because you're ever evolving, right? You're ever changing. You are not at perfection till you're in heaven, right?
Yes.
So it's going to be a development forever, where it feels like you're not mastering it because now there's a new emotion you've never felt. Now there's a new situation you've never dealt with. But that doesn't change the fact that you have now built this true virtue because it's second nature to you. The virtue is like not having to think about what you're doing, right? You've built that into your life. And so you've mastered that aspect of journaling and being an introspective person.
Yes. Well, thank you. What can I say? No, I'm joking. It really is. And like I said before, it is one of those things that, sometimes almost knowing the power of journaling sometimes is its own detriment. Because sometimes I'll be like, I know I need to sit down with a journal. But if I do, then I'm going to hear God's voice more clearly, and he's going to tell me what I need to change. And I don't want to change that thing.
You know that one.
So, yes, exactly. So there are struggles in every stage, but I would say that I do find it such an impactful tool for, just growing in your relationship with God and in your knowledge of yourself.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I would just challenge everyone who's listening, even the men, to try journaling. Obviously, the pregnancy journal isn't for you, but there's other journals out there that even if it's an examination journal of some kind, journaling changed my confessions. I've never had a kid. I haven't touched this journal because I've looked through it and looked at the prompts, but Jordan is the testament to this. But for me, it changed my confessions entirely because I was able to realize, oh, shoot, I didn't even realize I struggled with self-preservation was one of them when I first started journaling. And it was just like, oh, the reason I treated this person this way is because I was trying to preserve myself from hurt or being scared to be vulnerable and like the truth of who I am. Like, stay away. So here's how I am projecting or pushing you away, or in ways not like isolating myself to be alone, but just an isolation of don't get that close. Like, and you use tactics to do that, and some which are vice then, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was doing that. But how would I have known? I could still be in that spot doing those things had I never journaled, had I never took the time to go through my insane amount of thoughts and be like, oh, that's
There it is.
Oh, that's why I do that. Oh, wow. And then I'm choosing to not do that.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's so beautiful. And I definitely agree with just that power in that self-reflection, especially before reconciliation, where you are like you said, I feel like it's so easy to there's that little pamphlet in front of confession and you go through the 10 commandments. You're like, no, 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 no. But then when you really sit down and you analyze your actions, really, you can identify those key vices. And really that's where the evil ones hides.
Your motive for them.
Exactly.
Why did you snap?
Yes.
Like, what was
true. You can sit down and be like, oh, like, I snapped at my brother, and then that's it. But that's not going to solve anything. Next time that happens, next time your brother does the same thing, you're going to snap at him again, and it's going to be all over again. But really identifying, like, where did that come from? Like, why did that trigger me so much? And I'm almost still holding on to this grudge and this anger towards this person that I love, and just being able to sit down with your own thoughts and your own emotions and kind of just identifying it, especially in a place where you're safe. Especially in a place you don't have to defend your feelings. You don't have to, justify them in any way. You sit down and you're vulnerable just because it's just you and God there. And you can write this stuff down and make it more palpable. And, and really get down again to the root of where this came from, because that's going to be the thing that next time he does that thing that upsets you, you're going to be like, okay, I'm not actually upset with you.
Yeah.
Or you can address it better. That's the other thing. Like, sometimes I'll have a reaction from something my husband says. And then I'll sit down with a journal. I'll be like, why did I react like that? And then the next time he does something like that, I'm like, hey, like, I'm really sorry, but when you did this, it reminded me of this, and that's why it really upset me. And it gives the people you love the ability to love you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real beauty of it, in being able to be like, hey, this is why this upset me, and this is what you can do to love me. And, and so it not only gives you that virtue of self-knowledge and of addressing that, but it also gives your husband or, your loved one the ability to choose to love you and to choose that virtue as well, which is so beautiful.
You're being vulnerable by telling them and sharing them with that thing, but it just creates a healthier relationship all around, because it's like, oh wow, I get why that hurt you. I'm sorry, my intention wasn't to hurt you. I didn't even know that I hurt you. I didn't know how that hurt you. But it's like, oh, but it did.
Yes.
And now, yeah, they can love you better, and you can love them better, and it really is like a stepping stone to healthier relationships all around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. When you know yourself, and when you have a healthier relationship with yourself and with God, of course, as well, but that gives you the ability to be loved in a way that you never could be. If you were going around not knowing yourself, how could anyone love you as who you are made in the image and likeness of God?
Yeah. So true. And it can even change your relationship with God in and of himself, right? He gave you your parents and the people in your life for a reason, to let you be loved, and those people hurt us. And then that impacts your relationship with him. And that's just the reality of the way that our relationship with him works, and especially towards our parents, right? So it's being able to also then take the hurt that you've had and translate that into your relationship with God, and be like, this is why I struggle to trust you, Lord. This is why I struggle to accept your love. Or this is why I struggle to come to you and turn to you, because I got hurt this way.
Yeah.
And whether that's you were hurt by someone and you're translating that into your relationship with God, or if you said, oh, why'd you let that happen to me, Lord? And putting it on him as, how could you let that happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to then, again, it's just being able to see all these things on paper. It brings a light that instead of just constantly being a running thought in your head
Mm-hmm.
is now, oh,
Yeah.
let me work through that a little bit more. Oh, it's actually not your fault, Lord. Or,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you didn't want that for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was them and not you. Okay.
Yes.
And like then you can just grow that much deeper in your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I love the way you said that. And really, like, yes, just to add on that is it not only gives your loved ones or other people the ability to love you more, but it opens, it allows you to let God love you more. That's all he desires of us, and that's the crazy part is he knows all of this. As you're telling him, as you're discovering this in yourself, he's like, yes, I know. But it pleases him so much to see you want to know yourself better because he loves you so much.
It's that complicated, annoying gift of free
It
will.
is exactly that. Exactly. Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's
Oh.
awesome. All right. Well, moving on to some more questions. Let's talk
thank
about
you.
your journal. I'm sure other things will keep coming up, but like let's just really talk about it. I'll link your
Thank you so much.
well, let's add this in there. So you have this journal. How did you get it out there? What else did you develop to promote your own journal?
Yes. Well, you know what? Not too much. This is still very early in the stages. This just kind of started happening. I'm trying to think when I really started like sitting down because this was an idea that I brought to my husband, and my husband is just like the most supportive person ever. So every time I have an idea, he's like, yes, we're going to do it. This is how we're going to do it. And I'm like, whoa, I wasn't ready.
Yes. We love a supportive husband.
We do. We love it. But it's sometimes it's intimidating because sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to tell you this idea yet because I feel like you're just going to make me do it.
Amazing.
Yes, it is so good. It's a wonderful problem to have. But so I brought this idea to him. I try to remember when it was, but then I kind of just started sitting down and really designing it. And really how I did design it was I just went back through my journal like throughout pregnancy. And I want to say 98% of all the prompts you see in there is things that I actively did throughout pregnancy that I kind of looked back on and reflected about. And I was like, how is this something that I can turn into a prompt? And the beauty of these prompts is like, I've given them to a couple of different friends who have been pregnant. And some of them, like, they come back to me and they're like, oh, I loved this one because I wrote about this. And I'm like, wow, that is nothing like how I wrote about this prompt. That was not what I was thinking when I wrote this. But that's the beauty of it is really that these are supposed to be springboards, really.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be something that engages something that's already in your heart. It's not supposed to put something on your heart. It's to bring forth what's already in there. And so I started designing this, and I want to say that I finished designing it probably just the beginning of this year. And I just kind of, I reached out to a couple of different printing places. And so I did just, bought them in bulk, and I just, bought them myself. And I was like, okay, we're just a small little self-starter. I've gotten to a couple of different Catholic bookstores, just reaching out, just kind of doing everything legwork by myself, which has been just so awesome. And it's so wonderful seeing such a community too, just in the Catholic community. People want to be supportive. People want to be
cute.
Yes, it's so beautiful. It's so wonderful. And it's such a testimony of our faith, really, in just that people want to support you and want to support, ideas like this. And so that's kind of where it started. And I am really excited for this company in a whole. I'm not planning on just sticking with the pregnancy journal. I'm hoping to produce many more.
What's the name of your company?
Yes, Lumen Vitae Press, and it's Latin for the light of life. It's kind of a nod to the University of Mary, as where me and my husband went to college, and one of the main buildings was called the Lumen Vitae. And it is, and really that name also is just inspired by my understanding of journaling in bringing to light
I was just going to say that.
Yes, things
That's
that are
cool.
in the dark. Exactly. So that's kind of where that name came from. And I don't know, it just kind of came to us. And here we are. Yes, much goals for the future. I'm hoping to produce many more journals. I'm hoping to produce more general journals as well. Things like you said, that a lot of these prompts really can be used all throughout life. And so that's the one that I'm working on next. I'm hoping to get that out relatively soon.
Awesome.
Yes, which I'm very, very excited about. And again, it's really, it's really just for the people who want to know more about themselves and who want to grow in their relationship with God the way we've been talking about.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it.
Well, so, all right. Can you describe your own pregnancy experience, and were there any particular emotional or spiritual challenges that you didn't expect?
Absolutely. Yes. The short answer. But you know what? So we got pregnant very quickly. And that was it. My pregnancy was pretty unexpected. Like it was of course something we were going into marriage being like, we're open, of course, like excited for a family. We obviously wanted this long term, but it wasn't something that we were like, okay, now,
Right.
And all of a sudden it was this thing happening and it's just
How long were you married when you got pregnant?
very soon. It was definitely a honeymoon baby, which is very beautiful. It's so exciting. But it was that there was so much fear.
Yeah.
There was so much fear in being like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this. Like I
just married the guy.
Exactly. I was like, I'm trying to get used to the fact that he wants his socks folded instead of putting balls. Like I'm not ready. So all of a sudden this was happening, and it was one of those things where externally I was like, I'm Catholic. I need to be joyful about this. Life is so precious and so exciting, and I can't show anyone that I'm so scared. I can't show anyone that I don't feel ready for this, that I feel like God made a mistake with this, because, I've got friends and family who are not Catholic, and I'm like, I need to be a testimony now, and I need to be perfect through this, but those types of thoughts are really the ones that hold us back from perfection and from holiness.
Yeah.
And so it was almost, I feel like, I almost the fear was isolating, where I was like, I can't show people how scared I am or how I'm not ready for this. But then that's when I sat down with those journals. I sat down with those journaling prompts and taking them from your mind, those deepest, darkest corners where you're like, I'm going to shove all those bad thoughts there. I'm going to slam the door and I'm going to go distract myself really fast, which unfortunately I feel like I do with most things. And I'm sure that many other people do.
I'm good at it.
I guess that was kind of those beauties of those moments. And, I have had friends who read some of these prompts in which I was pouring out so much fear and anxiety and saying that I'm not ready for this. And they're like, oh, I love this prompt because it brings so much joy and excitement and that type of thing. When I'm like, that's such a beautiful pregnancy experience, but it wasn't mine.
Right.
A lot of mine was being like, I can't do this. I'm not ready. What if this? What if this? What if this? And taking those out, like we were talking, taking those spaghetti brain and kind of just unspaghettifying it helps so much in identifying what you actually believe and how you want to respond to that.
Yeah.
And just being able to write down those fears. And I do have a prompt in here that I think it's in here several times because it's one of my favorite ones and I always fill up the page of don't sleep on it. And it's just where you can put your fears, you put your anxieties, everything that's causing you to stay up at night, put them here and just let it be. And so just filling up that page with I'm not going to be a good mom, or I'm not ready for this. And then being able to look at it and be like, do I actually believe that? When it's not up here where you just assume that up here is my identity, up here is who I am.
But that you're choosing those thoughts. We often think we're
Exactly.
choosing these things, but that's the evil one's way of just totally just
The evil one
destroying
can
you
put-
from the inside out.
Exactly. He whispers in our minds is what we oftentimes don't think about. And just because these thoughts are in our heads does not mean that that is who we are or that is something that God put there.
Yeah. Or that you even actually believe it. It's just
Right.
why did I even have that thought? That's crazy.
Yes.
And
Well,
you're
it's
just
I get those thoughts when we were trying for a baby. And I'm still like, I can't handle this. I'm not ready to be pregnant again. I'm not ready for the recovery after. I'm not ready for whatever it is.
Exactly,
But it's
because-
but we were trying to get pregnant and I still feel that way at times.
100%. And it is like, let's talk about, I mean, just the hormones in general. You're going to feel all that, and it's going to feel like you're the only person who's ever felt that way, but
Exactly.
that is so not true. And it is so not true that that's who you are, or
Right.
that's how you actually feel.
Right.
Exactly like how you said, where, taking them out and putting them, I feel like a lot of times when big things like this happen, or, you're feeling big emotions, a lot of times we hold these thoughts right here, and it's just, we can't see anything else.
Yep.
Nothing else exists but these thoughts right here.
Right.
And then just taking them and putting them on a page and being able to look at them from the outside helps so much in being like, that's not who I am.
Right.
That's not how I actually feel. Like, that's not how I want to be.
Right.
And I think, it's just so pleasing to God to exercise that free will and being like, how do I really want to respond to this? And how do I really, what kind of person do I want to be throughout this?
Yeah. So how would you encourage a woman who feels guilty for not feeling joyful in her pregnancy to use introspection rather than self-condemnation?
Ooh, okay, that's a very good question. And I would say, I mean, almost just to reiterate, that's kind of where I was, of like that feeling that it happened to the wrong person,
Yeah.
and that I wasn't ready. Like, this is years down the road, Lord. Did you not get the memo? But what I would say to them is that you're not alone, and you're not a bad mom for feeling that way.
Don't slam the door on the emotion.
Exactly. Don't
Open
slam the door on the emotion, and that's not who you are. Take that and pull it apart from your identity, because that's, these feelings, these passions, these emotions, that's not who God made you to be. Pull them apart from that cluster that you call your identity. Pull them apart, identify them, and then choose whether or not you want to act on that. And so I don't know if that made any sense.
No,
but
no, it did. It was,
so yes, that's what I would say. And I would say that definitely, like, you're not alone in feeling that way. You're not alone in feeling scared or not ready or isolated in those thoughts and those feelings. And God knows they exist.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is that a lot of times I almost wanted to put on a face for God too. I'd come to prayer and I'd be like, so excited. Everything's great. Can't wait. Yeah. So grateful for this. Yes, exactly. But he knows already you're denying this to yourself, not to him. So bring these things before him. It's so much more pleasing to him to allow him to enter into those feelings with you. He wants to be with you through that. He wants to hold you. He wants to comfort you. He's our shelter.
He's your dad.
Exactly. So yeah, bottom line, that's what I would say, in just recognize that you can't hide these things. You can't run from these things. What you can do is identify them. And identifying them does not make them real. Notice thoughts is what I would really say. And that's, I feel like, such a power of journaling, is noticing that you're thinking something. Instead of saying, this is true, you can say, I notice that I'm thinking this. You can say, instead of saying, I am going to be a bad mom, you can say, I'm noticing that I'm thinking that I'm going to be a bad mom. And that separates you from that. And you realize that's not who I am. That's not my identity. That's just a thought that's in my head.
God didn't design you to be a bad mom, and he wouldn't give
Exactly.
you the child if you couldn't handle it.
Exactly.
And he's
that's
going to
really-
give you the grace to handle it too.
Yes. Exactly. And, but the thing is, to thoughts swimming around, you can't use that logic.
Right.
That doesn't work. Those are
Right.
just thoughts that are swimming around
Yeah.
in that big spaghetti
Yeah.
ball head.
Yeah.
And you can say that all you want, but it will
Right.
fall on deaf
Yeah.
ears. But the
Yeah.
moment you identify those thoughts, the moment you could be like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can move on from that.
So one thing that's constantly in my prayer life, sometimes it's annoying because I'm just like, oh, it's the same answer every time. Thanks, God. And then I was like, maybe I should learn. Maybe I should take notes. There's a reason it's the answer
Yes.
every time.
Yeah.
When I go to adoration, I love bringing the Imitation of Christ with me.
Mm.
That's one of my favorite books to read. And I always used to come Holy Spirit. And it always feels really convicting. A little slap in the face from Jesus. Yeah, I knew.
Yep.
That was me. So I looked it up because I think I've brought this up before, but I just wanted to read it word for word of what I get every time. It just says, quote, And this is Jesus speaking to you, okay? Why do you delay in turning to me when I am ready to receive you? Why do you tire yourself with vain cares and useless sorrows? Cast all things upon me, for I will sustain you.
Whew.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a rough one.
Yeah, every time. And I'm just
Every
like,
time.
okay, so I'm aware that I was slow in turning to you.
Yes. And I would go even further in challenging that to say, even in your prayer life, how often you do that. How often in your prayers that you bring before God only what you want to bring before God. And you keep those doors closed in the back of your mind and you say, la, 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 that doesn't exist. We're talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's just sitting there like, thank you. I love that you're here, but this isn't what I want. I want those doors open. I want to hear what, the deepest, darkest parts of you are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because, only when you let go of that can you truly embrace, faith and childlike wonder of God.
I think part of the fear of journaling can be that if someone's done it before, it leads to more, right? You realize, like, I did this because it was supposed to be helpful, and oh my gosh, there's like 5 other things to journal about all of a sudden.
Yes.
Or you're like, oh my, I have a lot to work through, and you're like, we'll close that, pretend it didn't go there, and we'll wait for another year.
Yes, and like Jordan said, where it's like all of a sudden you have palpable answers to these things that like, oh, I want to get to this place, and these are the steps, and you're like, dang it, it was really
Now I
nice
have to
before
act
I
on
knew those.
Yeah. Now I have to actually do things. I have to like be more reflective, more
Exactly.
organized, make
Unfortunately,
more concrete
It is
decisions,
more
and
convicting for you to
yes,
choose the correct thing.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Just
It's essentially opening a can of worms that,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
you have no choice but to then keep going.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's true. It's like a lot of times we like balancing on that fence of like, oh, I don't know which way to go. But then all of a sudden you get those answers and you say, God is calling you to this direction. And you're like, this fence is getting really comfy now.
I like not knowing.
Like maybe I didn't journal about it properly and I'll just close the book and maybe journal about it next week, instead of taking those and being like, wow, this is what he's calling me towards. And these are palpable answers. And these are, this is the direction that he's leading me. I need to follow now. All of a sudden it's like journaling isn't the end game. It's almost like the roadmap of being like, all of a sudden now you have to live your life differently.
Yeah. Well, and instead of those annoying thoughts that you don't know what to do with that keep you up at night or just are running through your head all the time, or like the ones where you're questioning yourself, these negative ones, it opens you up to a new world of convicting thoughts of knowing like, I need to choose this, or I need to journal about this, or I need to be better in this way. And it's no longer these like super negative thoughts maybe always running through your head. Not to say that those are going away completely, but it shifts from the negativity or the toxic to virtuous, to betterment, to joy, to all those things. And sometimes it's hard to get to that place. And so the start is overwhelming because you're like, dang it. Now, I reacted for this thing, but that means I need to journal about that thing. And it's like a ladder. You're climbing it. And it's like, oh, finally I've reached this. And then you maybe think you're good. And then it's like, there's a new ladder to climb. Okay. And you just keep going. But that's like the beauty of it. So rather than sitting in negativity and whatever, you're sitting in what can feel overwhelming.
Maybe it goes from feeling condemning to yourself to more convicting to make that choice. And
exactly.
Like, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to be calling yourself out and growing and, climb that ladder. And the ladder is exhausting, but you build strength as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I know that you've talked about like you created this for your friend originally, but how has hearing from other women who've used your journal, has it revealed anything new to you about the emotional or spiritual side of pregnancy?
Like I said before, everyone's journey is different. And like hearing that from my friends of being like, oh yeah, this prompt led me to this. And all of a sudden I'm like sitting there looking back at my journal and I was like, wow, that is not what I got from that. Of just how beautiful it is to be experiencing something that no one else has. Yes, people have experienced pregnancy throughout human history, but there's never been a soul like yours, and there's never been a soul like your babies. These are both uniquely designed by God for each other.
Yeah. Well, and so Jordan, you can be the testament to this, but I mean, you're pregnant with number 2 right now.
Mm-hmm.
How is this pregnancy different than the last one even? Because not even just going off of like your pregnancy versus your friends' pregnancies, but Jordan, what is this pregnancy versus the last one
That's
like
a
for
great
you?
question. Yes.
Yeah, I would say, in a sense, there was things that it's like I knew to expect. So in some ways it was relieving to know what to expect because I'm like, okay, I don't have to like fear what is pregnancy going to be like. But it also was fear stirring because I know how sick I'm going to feel. I know how exhausted I'm going to feel. And now I have a toddler to chase while I'm exhausted. Now I have more laundry to do when I'm exhausted. Now I have, I still work. I have a child and I have a home. And there's still also like life that happens outside of the home too. So it's like, where's the balance? So I think with the new pregnancy, there was the comfort in the knowledge, but also the fear in the knowledge of what is happening. But I definitely do think there's also like another weird part and feeling of it of like, I can't wait to be done being pregnant and to meet this baby and to just like kind of just be relieved of the discomfort of pregnancy because it's not comfortable. I do get sick in the morning. And my fear is with my son when I was pregnant with him, my stomach was like an inch away from my knees when I would sit down, like huge, massive. So it's like the fear of that. I can't wait for that to be done. I just want to speed through that. But also with having a toddler, I want time to slow down so much.
Yes.
Because I'm like, you're growing up so fast. You're my baby. And I need to embrace these last few months of it just being us.
Yeah.
So many
new emotions.
Yeah. That come with it. With this next baby, I'm never going to be able to give this baby the time I got to give you. I'm just going to nap with you because I can. And I'm just going to like sit and play with you because I can. Because next time I want to sit and play with a baby, I have a toddler to chase or potty train. Or next time I'm pregnant again. It's, it's like there's so much that runs through my brain. Slow down time, but speed up.
Yep.
And you just have to choose to be present because you can't actually speed up or slow down time. So just like enjoy where it's at. And
because then you're going to find the beauty that comes with it once your baby's here.
Right, exactly. And God's going to give me the grace to love both because that's my fear of I'm going to give this baby attention and make my next one not feel loved. And I'm sure there are going to be times that happens, but it's like the fear that he's just going to feel pushed way to the wayside or I'm going to feel like I can't love this baby because I'm not loving it the same way I got to love him when he was a baby. I don't know, just mix of emotions and I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a beauty to identify them. Really.
Yeah. But again, God gives you the grace when it comes and when you need
so
it.
Beautiful.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Well, then we will just kind of shift into motherhood. A challenge. You can both try answer this question.
Yeah.
How about that?
Okay. Sure. Yes.
Since you're both moms,
Yes.
what do you think is missing in how our church prepares women for the emotional and spiritual realities of motherhood?
I definitely think in marriage prep, they should go over that kind of stuff a lot more. You talk a lot about like, financial things and roles that each one plays, but it's like you're kind of only thinking about that first phase of marriage. I feel like when going through marriage prep type of stuff, they lightly hit on NFP, but that's even like, I feel like they don't talk about pregnancy and motherhood whatsoever. I think that they should at least have a little bit of almost a resource.
I think that's a good
idea for
idea.
preparing someone going into marriage in the sense, because there is so much about it that it's like just the sacrifice that it takes to become a mom, to go through pregnancy. It is very self-sacrificial, and it's like I was reflecting on this recently. Let me think of how I want to say this. It's like the physical and emotional that like I go through, but then it's like the lack of a person that I become for my husband and child when I become this sick, exhausted person. It almost feels like another sacrifice to not even be able to give myself to them in the same way. And I think that's like a weird emotion that I've been having recently. I want to give myself to you in this way, but I physically and emotionally cannot. So they're gonna tear up.
That's okay. That's good.
Because I'm drained and I'm sick And all I want to do is sit here and have a fun conversation and play with my child. But I just can't, even though I want to. And so that is a type of sacrifice. Sorry. I don't know.
No, it's good.
That's good.
It's honest.
It is. And there's like kind of like a hurt in that way that it's like nobody prepares you for that feeling.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talks about that. I've never heard somebody express that they like a sacrifice is to just lay there and watch your husband and child play and not be able to join. That's weird. And sometimes I feel selfish for not being able to sit and play, but I'm like, but I just have to take care of this child.
Yeah.
And that's a hard part too. Because I'm like, sorry, I'm being a worthless person laying here. But it's not worthless. Obviously, I'm making a child. I'm growing a person. But I don't know. Nobody teaches you that. It's like even preparing the husband for the way I become. Because he's always like, I hate to complain because I'm not the one sick and exhausted. But he's like, but this is hard. Because he's like, I miss you. I miss talking to you.
Yeah. Oh, that's just beautiful for sharing. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's so beautiful that the podcasts like this exist, just where you can share that. And, you know, what I was saying earlier with my pregnancy of just feeling so alone in my feelings of not being ready, you know, there are so many things like that that no one talks about.
Right.
And then when it happens, when people feel the way that you're feeling, they feel so alone and they feel like they're less of a person. So it's just so beautiful to be able to open up about that. To be able to say, hey, this is something that I experienced too. And it's okay if you're feeling this way.
Totally.
But even that not feeling ready, that thought or that feeling doesn't go away for moms who are pregnant with number 7, pregnant with number 9, pregnant with number 4. Like,
Right.
you know, like it doesn't leave. They're just like, oh boy, here's another. How am I going to do it?
Right.
Yeah. You know, like it's either how am I going to do it or how am I going to love this one too? Or, you know, there's always some sort of fear that comes with it.
Oh, 100%. And I feel like this is a struggle to say because I feel like this is something that is so different between culture and church. Culture talks about that all the time. Culture talks about how horrible pregnancy is and how motherhood is so draining and it's so
it ruins your life.
It ruins your life. You want to be you want to be the boss woman. You want to do everything you want to do now before kids. Don't waste your life with kids, you know. And so the church takes that and says the opposite, which is, you know, it's well intended of being like, no, motherhood's the best. It's always perfect. You're going to love it. You know,
you need to have 10 kids right away.
You need to have 10 kids right away. Exactly. Where it's like there needs to be a medium of being like, this is such a joy. It's so amazing. I look at my baby boy and I say, how did I think that I didn't want this? How did I think that I could be anyone other than who I am as a mother to you now? And I love it so much. But I feel like because the church wants to dive so much on that side that they do leave that to the wayside of there are those moments when you're sitting and you're exhausted and you're like just so exhausted and overstimulated, or it's scary and you feel like, but you know, I'm a Catholic mother and I shouldn't feel this way.
Right.
You know, I shouldn't feel like I can't do this. I shouldn't feel like this is really hard. But it is important to, I don't know, I just think it's so beautiful to be able to share that, especially on a Catholic podcast like this, of being, say, hey, Catholic mamas out there, it's okay that you're not always perfect. And it's okay that you're not always feeling totally in control and like this is everything you ever wanted. Those moments are amazing. I love those moments when you just look at your baby and you're like, this is everything. I love this so much. But, you know, in those moments of fear, in those moments of saying, I can't do this, those are the moments that you get to choose to love. And those are really the moments that are so beautiful. And those are the moments that God is calling you to be a saint. It's those moments when you say, I can't do this. I can't be everything. I can't be the perfect wife. I can't be the perfect mother. It's those moments when you look at your baby and he's crying and you don't understand why. And you're so sleep deprived and overstimulated. And
you just start crying too.
And you start crying too. And you say, I don't want to love you right now.
Right.
But then those are the moments that you get to choose love. My goodness, God didn't want to love us when he was on that cross. It was not a joyful experience for him, but he chose to love us. And that's really the beauty in love, in being able to choose those moments to look at that and say, this is my cross to bear. And I can choose to do it joyfully, even though I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, last question, and then we can wrap this up. Yeah? Okay. How has introspection played a role in your motherhood journey?
Hmm. I feel like I'm just gonna reiterate everything.
No, that's
Um,
fine. I like
mhm.
I know it's about journaling, but like
Yes.
in what specific way now that you've been journaling since you were 12?
Mhm.
So how has it now kind of come into motherhood? Maybe how do you even fit it in, right? Like moms
Mhm.
often are like, I don't get prayer time in. I don't get journaling time in.
Yes.
What is it for you?
Mhm.
How is it a new role
That's a
in your
great
motherhood?
actually, that I like that rephrase because
Yeah.
that is a great question because it is there's very little time that you can just sit down and be like with yourself in a journal. It makes that time amazing. It feels so great when it does happen, but it is farther and fewer, than it was in the past. But I would say introspection does not look the same for everyone else, and it's not just journaling. Of course, we're talking about journaling, and journaling is such an amazing exercise, and it's so wonderful. But the more time and the more effort you put towards introspection, the easier it comes to you. And so it might look like, hey, your husband's home from work and he's taking care of the baby and you're taking a shower. And it's really great to take a shower. And right now, I'm just going to think about my day and I'm going to, use this time for introspection, even if I don't have a pen and paper in front of me. And that's okay too. God sees you trying and he's delighted by you trying, even in the smallest way of, being able to, sit in a hot shower for 5 extra minutes and be like, Lord, this is what happened today. This is how I'm feeling about it. How do you want me to respond? How do you want me to live differently? So that's what I would say. I would say that don't put too much pressure on yourself to be like, I have to do X, Y, and Z in order to be an introspective person and in order to grow in holiness. Because God meets you where you're at, which is the beauty of our faith in just knowing that He knows us so well. He reads our intentions. He knows what we're trying, and He's delighted by just the effort. So just put effort in whatever way you can and trust that he knows that just because you're not perfect, just because you're not doing an hour of reflection every night before you go to sleep or when you wake up, he knows that you're doing everything you can and he's so delighted in that.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, it's like you, Jordan, when you're like, Lord, I'm gonna sit here in prayer, but
You could
like
just pour into me because I'm
pour into
tired.
me while I like sleep but not sleep. Yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Give him what you can.
Exactly.
Give him what you
Give him what
can.
you can because that is so, it's kind of like, that passage in the Bible about those rich men who come and they give a lot of gold to the church and they are, flaunting it and they're, it looks so grand to other people. And then that poor widow who just gives her last two, you know, 2 coins. And that was so much more delightful to God. And Jesus recognizes that and says, this widow has given so much more. Those 5 minutes extra in the shower while you're just praying to God and just intentionally trying to spend time with him means so much more to him than back in the day when you had all the time in the world and you could sit down for an hour and a half in adoration, and just knowing that he hears you and he sees you and he is so excited by just the effort that you're putting in.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, heading into our examination. Jordan, lead the way.
Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, enlighten my mind, that I may see clearly all of my sins. Let me not be deceived by self-love, but show me the true state of my conscience. Do I make space for silence and reflection in my daily life? Am I present to my own interior life, or do I avoid examining my thoughts, desires, and emotions? Do I invite God into weakness, or do I try to handle my weaknesses alone? Do I justify, excuse, or hide from uncomfortable truths about myself? Have I been honest with myself about my sins, weaknesses, and bad habits? Do I examine my motives behind my actions, words, and decisions? What do I desire most right now? Are my desires ordered toward God or toward self-gratification? Are there attachments, comforts, or fears that prevent me from fully surrendering to God's will? Do I cling to control, comfort, approval, or success more than I trust God? Am I open to correction from God or others? Do I resist growth because I fear change or discomfort? Do I pray for the grace to see myself as God sees me? Have I taken steps to surrender my interior struggles to His mercy? Have I asked God to reveal areas where I need to grow in prudence, humility, and self-mastery? Do I seek to order my thoughts and desires to become more virtuous? Do I take time to reflect on how my choices are affecting my soul or my growth in holiness? Am I truly striving for virtue or settling for mediocrity? Do I approach confession as an opportunity for healing and growth in self-knowledge?
Oh my God, I am heartily sorry for having offended you, and I detest all of my sins because of your just punishments, but most of all because they have offended you, my God, who are all good and deserving of all my love. I firmly resolve, with the help of thy grace, to confess my sins, to do penance, and to amend my life. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Well, then, Emma, how can listeners get a copy of your journal
That is a great
or
question.
connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've got a website, lumenvitae.com. Feel free to look that up.
I'll put a link in our show
Perfect.
notes.
That would be great. That's the easiest way to get a copy of my journals. I am working on getting them into more Catholic bookstores. Obviously, I always suggest supporting your Catholic bookstores. But, either through there or through my website. I'm also on Instagram. Feel free to look me up.
Yep, I'll link that as well for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, this has been such a blast, though, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Yes.
And hopefully we can tag team a journal someday and have you on again.
All right. Wonderful. I look forward to it.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. Till
Bye.
next time.
Thanks for listening to the Wannabe Saints podcast.
If you have a question or topic you would like us to cover, reach out to us at wannabesaintspodcast@gmail.com or on Instagram at wannabe_saints.
You can find the link in our show notes.
Thanks for listening, and God bless.